I used to love when Monica would come up to my desk when I was hosting Morning Shift. Gosh, she would have so many great ideas, but she would come at the worst time because we would be prepping to go on the air. But when I'd have her on the show, wow, I could have had her on for the whole hour. I mean, you know, it says here, and I know a lot about Monica's history, but it says here that she started in Chicago journalism as a copy clerk at the Chicago Sun-Times in '85. I swear she started in this business when she was like 9, it seems like. Because she's been doing it for so long. She knows so many great people from writers to broadcasters to journalists. And I don't know if you know, she's got a brand new book out with David Hammond. It's all about Chicago food. What a great book. I should bring one home and just sort of cry at night. Because we cannot get a good hot dog in Iowa, right, Andy? They don't, burgers and pork tenderloin. But anyway, Monica, her last role at WBEZ was working for Curious City, which great position for her because she's got one of the most curious minds I know. Now she's with Axios Des Moines, we have an Axios in Des Moines, I apologize, Axios Chicago, and it's like the band is back together because it's her and another BEZ alum, Justin Kaufman, and yet another BEZ alum who just started, Carrie Shepard, who was my producer. So, wow, that is great. I know what Monica was going to, she had written this, I think, on Twitter or Facebook. I think her partner said, no, Monica, you can't pick your own book. But then I thought, well, and I think Mary Dixon and I were saying, maybe you can, because, I mean, what more could change your life than writing your own book, right? But I think she does not have her own book. We're going to find out. Here is the great Monica Eng.
Okay, I come bearing props. So as Tony said, I'm not allowed to have my own book, but I can tell you it's on the raffle table. And I did consider it because, you know, yeah, it's super self-promotional, but it's a book that I thought was just going to be about learning the stories of 30 foods in Chicago. But really what I learned was the sort of the 20th century immigrant history of Chicago, and unfortunately how deeply segregated we still are culturally. Southsiders have never had the acutigawa or the jibarito, and Northsiders have never had the sweet steak. And I hope that this book will get people to like go to other neighborhoods and learn about their fellow Chicagoans. So it's on the raffle table if you want it, and you can buy it at U of I Press. The other book I was thinking of doing was Dumas on food. It's a book that I read over and over and over and over again. The same guy who wrote Count of Monte Cristo, not Crisco, he should have done that, and Three Musketeers, Alexandre Dumas. He also wrote this wonderful dictionary, A to Z dictionary of food, that taught me that you can be a food writer and just be so full of shit. He just makes up stuff all the time. You can tell he had a deadline, and he was just like, I'll just write a bunch of crap. But he gets away with it, and it's so charming. I love what he wrote about buckwheat. You know, he always says, buckwheat originally came from Asia, whence it was taken to Africa and introduced to Europe and Spanish Moors. But he says that it's a very nourishing grain. However, one has to confess the bread made from buckwheat is the worst of all breads. The day after it's been baked, it dries up, splits, crumbles, causes flatulence, and is altogether detestable. So he has like all these like really big opinions on one should never eat these things, but I would recommend it. I love it. But I decided, and since this turns out to be like an Evanston love fest, I decided on this book. All right. Who has ever been to Hune? Give me some claps. Yes. And have you ever seen Ellen King, who's the baker there? She is wonderful. Who went to the Dempster Hune before it moved? Woo! Who's been to the one since? Well, I love this book. You can see my rabbits, my long departed rabbits, they chewed it. I've bent a bunch of pages, and it's called Heritage Baking. And I've written my thing. So basically, I've been a food writer for about 30 years. And so I get a lot of books. I get a lot of books about health, about baking, about food, about cookies, about the latest health trends. And I can usually tell if I want to write about a book or interview an author just by looking at the press release or looking at the book. When I got this book in 2018, I just laughed. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be writing about this book. It's not that I, didn't love Hune, and I'd even booked Ellen King for a show that I'm getting very clamped about. Does anybody remember Worldview? Yeah, it's so sad that I booked Ellen King to speak about heritage grains on Worldview, and I'm still mad at WBEZ for canceling it. Anyway, but when I love braising things, I love making soups, but I've always been a pretty terrible baker. I always thought, leave baking to the professionals. So when I saw this, and I saw what Ellen King was asking us to do, I thought, that is kind of nuts. Because she wants you to make bread without using yeast. The only type of bread I made before used yeast. Instead, she wants you to make a living starter that you have to feed regularly, keep in your fridge, and proof it to keep it alive. And before you can even use it, you have to make this starter active, and you have to use it when this starter decides you're going to use it and start your 2-day process. But that's not all. Not only did she want me to leaven my bread with this natural homemade starter that I had to keep alive in my fridge or in a proofer, she wanted me to use special flour. She didn't want me to use any flour I could get from Whole Foods or Jewel. No, it had to be locally grown Midwest flour. Seemed crazy. Not only should it be locally grown Midwest flour, but King wanted me to use heritage varieties of flour, stuff that most people had stopped growing because it wasn't an easy commodity grain, stuff that did not yield much, but it had these wonderful flavors, stuff that hardly anybody was growing. And not only did she want me to use those heritage grains, she wanted it grown organically and with regenerative practices that would nourish the soil rather than raping it. But that's not all. King also didn't want that flour to go rancid, so she really urged her readers to go and get that flour when it was freshly milled at the mill. And also because it has all of these wonderful oils in it, and it has the endosperm in it, and it has the germ in it, it goes rancid fast. So you have to store this flour in your refrigerator in airtight cans. So, okay, I'm thinking, oh, this sounds great. Yeah, all my readers are going to want to do this. I'm going to want to do this. And so in order to get this flour, I had to go to Kankakee County, to Ashcombe, Illinois. Has anyone ever been to Ashcombe? Just south of Kankakee, where there was a Janie's mill, and where this guy, Harold Wilkins, had grown the flour, and then there was this mill that grew up around it. And it wasn't just that, but there was more. She was kind of like, you know what? It actually would be better if you didn't go all the way to Kankakee every time you wanted flour. You should really mill the flour yourself. And you shouldn't just mill it with the blades on your blender. She really thought you should buy your own stone mill. And then I was like, this is nuts. I'm never going to write about this. Nobody is ever going to do this. And then I looked at the book and I realized my old friend John Lee from the Tribune, I worked at the Tribune for 16 years, my old friend John Lee, who had moved to California, he did all the photos for this. I thought, I love Ellen King, I love John Lee, but there's no way anyone is going to make bread like this. Like, what kind of cuckoo, bourgeois housewife who has all time in the world to do-it-yourselfer is going to do this? Well, the short answer is me. You see, after reading this book over and over, and after interviewing Harold Wilkins, I ended up meeting him at a Good Food Festival, who's an Iroquois County farmer who started farming. He'd come from 4 generations of commercial commodity farmers. And after 4 generations, he decided to honor his daughter, Janie, who was killed in a car crash at the age of 15, by converting to all organic and heritage grains. It was her last wish. She had been urging him to please convert to organic, and he had developed a whole series of diseases, and he did not. He felt like it was because of the pesticides he was exposed to, and he did not want that for his children. After I interviewed Harold, and then after I interviewed bakers after bakers, the one from Publican Bread, Greg Wade, about the methods they used and the farmers that they met by doing this, and then the people who thought they couldn't eat bread, but when they used these grains and when they fermented it for at least 24 hours, people who couldn't eat bread could eat bread again. And when I learned more about how these practices are bringing essential nutrients back to the soil so that you don't have to put chemicals in the soil anymore, I started trying to make this bread. So first, I made my starter, and I took care of my starter every day. I fed my starter, and I made sure that it was actually at a nice heightened state when I finally used it. Sometimes it would be 9 o'clock at night, and my partner would say, "What the heck are you doing? You're starting bread this time?" "Well, the starter's telling me to start the bread." And then I said, "I'm not going to buy any fancy equipment. I'm not that person." But then I bought my first lamb. Who knows what a lamb is? Yep, so that's where when you have your bread, you cut it, and it makes the beautiful designs like this. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to buy the lamb. I'm never going to buy one of those bannetons. Like, who needs to have those straw things that you hold your bread? You can use a bowl. Never going to buy it. Yeah, now I have 4. So I bought the banneton, and I said, but I am never going to buy my own mill. That is crazy. These mills are like $500. Who would buy a mill? For my next birthday, my partner, Colin, got me the mill. He got me the mock mill. And I grind flour for anybody who wants it. And then I said, but I'm never going to buy one of those proofing boxes. We got the bathroom. We can just stick all the dough in the bathroom, and it starts getting a little stinky in there. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll take that proofing box for Christmas. You don't want your bread sitting in a smelly bathroom. And so today, I am making that bread. I have 50-pound bags of rye berries, 50-pound bags of turkey red wheat that I grind every day whenever I need it. I make bread for my father in his senior home. I make bread for my mother. I make bread for gifts. I make bread for people's children's birth. And this book changed everything we do. I mean, part of it was something called the pandemic when everybody started making sourdough bread. But yeah, I made my starter, went down to Kankakee. When my daughter goes to U of I, so when I head down there, I stop and I get another 50-pound bag of bread. And, it's really changed our lives. I mean, I almost didn't want to write about this book because, I couldn't believe that anyone, much less I, would do it. But now we make our own bread. We will never have bread that comes from outside the house, except maybe if it's from Hune. Thank you very much. And here's some of it.